Okay, so in this lesson, we'll create a simple counter application in Elm. So let's start by just showing out what I already have here. So I have declared already this file to be a module called the main, and that will export or expose the main function. And I have done some imports here. The browser, I have imported the HTML function, the button function, the div function, the span and the text. And for the events, I have imported the onClick function. Those functions over here, we'll use them in our views. So let's start thinking about the model of this application. In a counter application, what do we need to keep track of it? We need to keep track of the counter, which usually should be a integer. So let's start by declaring the type of our model. So type alias model, and since we just keep track of a number, it's just an integer. So let's declare our initial model here. So I'm going to call initial model, and then it is of type model, and then right here this is the signature, and then right there I'm gonna initialize it with 0. So our initial model starts with 0. Next we go to the update function. So the update function is responsible for taking a message and a model and return the updated version of that model. So what we can do here in this case is that we have to think about what kind of actions can the user take when working with our application. In this simple application, the only message that the key user can send through the update function is increment or decrement. So we start by creating a type called message, and we will say that we have the increment one and the decrement message. That's all the two messages the user can take. Next, let's create the signature for our update function. So the signature is, it takes a message, which means increment or decrement, takes a model, which is an integer, and returns the new updated model. So here we will take the message, take the model, and we'll decide what we have to do according to the message. So for that, we use a case statement, which is very similar to the switch statement in JavaScript. So we can do case message of, and here in this case, if the message is of decrement, what we're gonna do is subtract 1 from the current value in the model. If it is increment, we will add 1 to the model. And that's all we need to do. That's all the updated function do. Take the message, take the model, decide what to do, returns the new model. Next, we go to the view function. So the view function takes the model, which is the current state of the application, and converts that to HTML, and that's what the user sees on the browser. So let's start by creating a div that's like a container for application, no attributes in the first list, and we start by creating a button. On the attribute list, we'll create a onClick, so when the user click on that button, we'll send the message decrement. And then here, I will just give a text, so you can see on the screen is a negative or a minus sign. Next, let's just create a span with no attributes, and with text function that will take our model, and that will show the current value of our counter. However, this will not work. The text function expects a string, and our model is an integer. So to make this work, we'll have to do string from int and pass the model. And then we have to surround this with parentheses, because if not, the function will believe that the text function will see string from int as one argument and model another one. So we just have to surround it by parentheses. Last, we can just create another button that will send onClick, and this time we send the increment, and we'll pass the text here function with a plus sign to show that's the increment button. Next, here on the main function is just the way you bootstrap the application. You call the sandbox, which expects a record, and this record you have to pass the initial, and in this case here we called initial model, so I'll change this to initial model, and we pass the update function of your function. That's it. In a few lines of code we have our application ready. Now let's try it out. Elm comes with a utility called Elm Reactor. So if I type Elm Reactor here, it will start up a web server where you can try out our application. So it tells me to go to localhost 8000 to see our application. So there you go. If I refresh here, we have our application. If you press plus, we get the count incremented, and if you press minus, we get the count decremented. However, we have no logic to handle the negative number so far. So that's it for this tutorial. That's just how to show how simple it is and nice to build applications in Elm. It's a very powerful language that can create very, very powerful and fast applications.